Clare Dubois, thank you so much indeed for agreeing to be a part of the Breaking Through the Void Summit. I'm personally delighted to speak to you today. I'm a huge fan of TreeSisters and the work that you do that. So I'm really, really delighted to be speaking to you. So thank you. So what I'd like to do is just to say very briefly about your bio, just for people who may not know who you are and about TreeSisters, and then we'll get started into talking about tapping into feminine consciousness, breaking through the void, how we can start to, be the change makers we need to be. If that all sounds okay. So, Clare, you founded TreeSisters after a car crash that delivered a life-changing message, and you were told that the tropics needed to be reforested within 10 years, and that women were the missing piece in the climate change crisis, and that feminine consciousness needed to be reinstated or it's over. You are a free radical and unlikely leader. You're an earth-loving social entrepreneur and an inspirational speaker. And TreeSisters is a quickly growing women's crowdfunding campaign to direct the brilliance, creativity and generosity of women towards the reforestation of the tropics. So that's quite a bio.
Well, sounds great, doesn't it? Yay, let's try and live up to that. Yay.
But I mean, you really are doing some great work in terms of, actively doing something to save the planet. And I think so many of us, me absolutely for one, want to do something and don't know where to start, or just think we're too small or insignificant to make a difference. And I think what I love about your story is that poo-poos that, you are doing, I think, what many of us would aspire to do, which is why I'm so happy to talk about your story today. So would you mind, and I'm sure you've said it a million times, but would you mind sharing the story about how TreeSisters started and how it all came into being? What was the experience that you had?
Well, yes, I tell the story over and over again, so I'd love to not tell the story, but that's not going to make you happy. So I'll share a couple of vignettes because I know where you want to go. Because the story of TreeSisters is the story of my life, really. Because, yes, there was a car crash and I was given the whole thing fully formed. I mean, it was literally like sitting, taking dictation. But there was a real journey up to that point. There was a lot of soul searching going on. And I'm trying to think about what of my story is going to be the most relevant to the most people out there. I believe that if you're alive at this time, you've got a role to play in the transformation of human consciousness and the shift to what I call a restorer species. I think this is the most powerful time to be alive that's ever been in our species. We're either going to make a quantum leap of consciousness or we're going to die. And I think it's taking that dramatic level of tension, really, to back us up against the wall to see whether we're going to leap. And what's amazing about that is it's total. Like, there is only either we make a leap or we're going under. And for how many of us, even though we've got everything to play for and everything to lose, are our fears still too strong to have us act? Are our little individual insecurities and neuroticisms like holding down the vast brilliance that's inside of us that we don't even dare to believe is there? And or that we think if it is there and we bring it out, we'll just get laughed at, or there's going to be a million different reasons why we just think, it's easier to play safe. Like, now is not the time to play safe. Like, we're done with playing safe. So there was a point that it all changed for me. And this is, gosh, this is about 6 years before the car crash, probably. And I speak in depth about this in a video on YouTube called Waking Up. But I played The Rape of the Earth in a little moment of ritual theater at a 5 Rhythms workshop one Christmas. And I was the earth. and I got to be raped, essentially. I mean, I was dressed in everybody's clothes, and there's this group of people, and they were like pulling off my clothes and pulling my hair and like yanking everything off and like deforesting me and mining me and trashing me and, you know, using me. And at the point that I was naked, I screamed my most blood-curdling scream and fell on the floor, at which point they were to have a sort of a community moment and realized that you don't trash your planet, put me back on, dress me, and everything was fine. And whilst they were stripping me, I was basically handing out cups of tea. So, you know, they're taking, and I'm still giving, and they're taking, and I'm still giving. And they're taking in the most brutal ways, and they're taking because money is everything to our culture, and because she's not a living planet, she's just a thing to be used, and blah, blah, blah. And the whole time I'm just giving out cups of tea. And when I held myself on the floor, I went into total shock. It was like one of these life-changing moments where I had embodied reality to the extent that my psyche couldn't pretend it wasn't happening anymore. And all I could hear was all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. And I was just like, oh my God, we're done. It's over. You can't put a planet into therapy. You know, this is it. We don't get a second chance. You don't get to put her back on a throne and wrap her in her clothes. Like, we sort ourselves out now or it's over. And they put me back on my throne and dressed me up, and I looked up at the room and everyone was crying, and I was kind of in this sort of place of total suspended shock. And I, you know, went back, watched the rest of the theater, and then there was this present giving ceremony afterwards. And for probably the 10 years before that, I'd been having nightmares about no more clouds. So I'd been having premonitions about climate change before anybody was actually talking about it. And I was obsessed with clouds because I was like, oh my God, you know, England without rain, what's it going to be like when there's no rain? And there's going to be no rain, and what are we going to do? And I opened my present, and it was a blue book with a cloud, a single cloud on it. And it just said, you can change the world. And I burst into tears, and I was completely hysterical, like sobbing so incoherently. I left the room and I ran out into the woods where I was. I cried for about an hour, and inside that hysteria was, I have to do something, I have to do something, I have to do something. But I'm nothing, I can't do it. I'm absolutely, you know, there's nothing here, I can't do anything. But I have to do something. No, I can't do it. No, I have to do something. I was just like, and I was sat there just going, wow, are my fears so important to me? Is my inadequacy so all-encompassing to me that I can watch the world die and say, sorry, my fears are more important? And I was inside what felt like my own madness, just looking at myself going, really? Really? Is that, you know, is it that important to you to stay small? And I just thought, no, I have to give my life. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I have to give my life. And that was the point where there was only one future available to me. And that was plugging myself into some form of ecological restoration and consciousness shifting. I didn't know what it was going to be. I'd gone to several conferences, and I'd watched Lynn Twist speak, and I'd cried, and I knew that meant I was supposed to be raising money. And I'd watched stuff about the Amazon, and I knew it was supposed to be trees. So I was walking around going, I'm supposed to be raising money for trees, but I don't know what it is. And then the really shocking thing about the car crash was, it was really interesting, actually. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, and I suddenly thought, yeah, I've slipped on black ice, and I was all over the road, and I was heading for a really steep edge where if I'd gone over, I could have died. And a tree stopped me. And there's a way you can look at it that you say, you know, a tree stopped me from going over the edge. You know, what if tropical reforestation stops us from going over the edge? And I hadn't thought about it in that way until yesterday, but yeah, I had a crash. There was a blinding flash of white light. There were two words inside the windscreen, the experiment. And a voice said, humanity is running out of time. it's not over yet. It's going to take all of you rising to the challenge to get through what's coming. The single greatest threat facing humanity is fear of failure. And you can get over fear of failure by calling everything you do an experiment, because you can't fail an experiment. You can only learn. Which I thought was amazing, even though I was wrapped around a tree. And I said, what's the experiment? And back came, you have to reforest the tropics within 10 years. And at that point, my life flashed before my eyes. And I realized why all the things that had been happening to me up until that point had been happening to me. And I had a complete download of what that meant. And it meant that I had to turn myself inside out and become something that I wasn't. I was a total introvert. And there was not one skill set apart from my willingness to have a go that set me up for this. I'd never worked in an organization before, let alone led one. I'd never been on I wouldn't use a computer. I was going to have to do accounting. I was going to have to do legals. I was going to have to do fundraising. I was going to have to manage a team. I was going to have to get on stage. I was going to have to do, everything was like anathema to me. Like, you are joking. And the voice just continued and said, you have to mobilize the women. The women are the missing piece. The women are the womb carriers on Earth's womb. Feminine consciousness is the consciousness of living systems, is of the consciousness of health. You can't consistently take from the planet without giving back. You've got to make it normal to give back. Women have to remember who and what you are. Women and nature share a common history, blah, blah, blah. There was this whole just download, which ended with feminine consciousness has to be reinstated or it's over. And I didn't even know what feminine consciousness was at that point. It was like the most preposterous request ever. And yet I instinctively knew it all made sense. But what happened was, it was like life shone this bright light. It asked me to be presumably the me that I'm born to be. But at that point, I was not that. I'm still not that. I'm growing into that. And it was like I was called. They were like, really? Who are you? Who are you? What do you believe in? What do you stand for? What are you willing to do? And I said, sorry, you've got the wrong person. And fell into depression for 9 months, during which I tried to do various things, versions on a theme, but anything but work with women, which was total freak out for me. Or, I tried, but I failed. And then I failed so badly enough times that eventually I said, okay, I know I'm getting it wrong. What am I doing? And the voice came back and said, do all of that, but you do it through the women. And that's when it started. That was 9 months after the car crash.
Still, such an amazing story. And just listening to you saying about the play that you did, even that made me feel really emotional,
It was huge. It was like, and I want everybody to have that experience. Like, I want everyone to be the earth and realize what we're doing, because that was such a brilliant experience for me to break through the separation.
Yeah, and you're right. Do you think we all need to have some sort of experience like that in order to get through what our own limitations, and they're just things that we think about ourselves, aren't they? Or do you think we can transcend that in another way?
Well, Gaia is producing hurricanes and floods and droughts and fires at a rate of knots that are, if you're not frightened, you're not paying attention. I would love it if we could do it in another way. We don't seem to be trying very hard to do it in another way. We're about to launch our Billion Trees campaign, and as part of that, we're actually offering a 6-week inner journey, because I'm trying to find another way. Like, I'm trying to find, it's what I've been doing for years. I've been trying to find what's the language, what are the experiences, what can I offer from that place in me that is so completely given to this. Can I ring the tuning fork in other people that touches the place in them that longs to be given to something? If they're not, can I model having a go and getting it wrong enough times for people to know that it's safe to have a go and get it wrong? What can I do to help people have an experience? And I don't know, there's been so many incredible films that have gone out, and yet we don't seem to change. I mean, The Day After Tomorrow got Germany to seriously take action. Like, a whole country reacted to The Day After Tomorrow, and they just put solar everywhere. That's the sort of level that I want to see. Like, there's we have a wake up and we actually take action. Well, I don't know what it's going to take. And it may just be that it takes the whole Rocky Mountain forest dying and the rainfall stopping in America. It may be that it's the Great Barrier Reef going. Who knows? That humanity needs to, till there's nothing there to take for granted. And I desperately don't want that to be our learning curve. I desperately don't want it to be our learning curve. And I'm pitching myself towards that not being the case, but who knows?
Well, do you know what? I mean, the reason for me of putting on this summit is because I feel exactly the same as you. But actually, coming back to something you said earlier, I also see the world quite differently to most people, I think, and that this is an exciting, much potential for us, such a big opportunity to do the right thing and to step up, and that for me is really, really exciting. And that's what I want to get across to people on the summit, is just to get them to have an opportunity, from what people are saying, to change their personal and world view, so that they just think a little bit different and think, okay, well, what can I do, or how am I going to move forward, or just that insight that might swing their thinking and their behaviour and how they see the world one way. So I'm really hopeful that comes out from the summit as well. But what do you think it is that gets in the way of life, of us moving forward and being the change we want to be?
Momentum. I think consciousness has serious gravity and momentum. And I tell a story sometimes. When I was about 11, I think, at school, we did an experiment in a swimming pool where you all go to the edges and you all walk around the same direction. And to begin with, you're pushing against the water, and it's a real slog to get the momentum of the water going. But then after a while, it gets going, and then after a while, it carries you. And then when you're in that momentum, try and stop it. Like, try and turn around and walk against it. It's almost impossible. And when I was invited, it was the same year of the car crash, actually. Was it? Well, anyway, COP15 was happening. And a friend of mine in Bristol said, they were hosting a conference in Bristol, and they're saying, it's all PowerPoints, it's all really dry. Can you come and just shake it up a bit? And I was like, okay, I'll come and be radical somehow. And what I did was I got all these businessmen to stand at one end of the room, and I said, okay, this line on the floor right here is the line of our history, and we're gonna walk it. And I said, will anybody be the custodians of the rainforest? And 3 people said yes. So I said, okay, will you come out of that line and come and stand over here? And I want you to tell us how it feels, that they're happy in the rainforest and everything's fine. And then I got everybody to walk our history through the Dark Ages and through the scientific revolution and the industrial revolution, the agricultural revolution, in the correct order. And what happened was everyone was walking along with their heads down and their hands down, and the people in the rainforest were great. And then we hit the scientific revolution and I can't remember which came first. My history's crap. The agricultural revolution.
Yeah.
And then the industrial revolution. People in the rainforest started just going, oh my God, get me out of here. Like, they suddenly went into panic stations and were feeling awful. The rest of us were like, heads came up. Suddenly there was all this possibility. Suddenly there was all this plenty. Suddenly there was enough. Suddenly there's just like, oh, And it was like, oh my God, and then we arrived at where we are now, and it was like, there's like this, like suddenly in the last 200 odd years, we've dominated the hell out of this planet, and we've just gone, oh my God, like we're like children, oh my God, I can make something out of this. This is amazing. And, and aren't I brilliant? Like I can define myself by what I can do with this thing called a planet. And I'm so busy, like, making sure there's enough food. I've gone past the enough food. Now we need too much food, and now we can just consume everything. And it's like there's been this famine and this insecurity in humanity, where we've been at the effect of nature and nature cycles for so long, and suddenly with fossil fuels we can force our soils and try and make growing seasons all year, and like take what we want, and we're not so food insecure anymore. We're not temporarily, we're going to be when the shit hits the fan, but right now it's like we're in a feeding frenzy after a long famine. And that is literally, to me, that's a totally understandable collective consciousness momentum. Like, we've been going in a particular direction around that swimming pool, building up momentum around, we're the chosen people. We get to do what we want to this planet. We can use it. We can abuse it. We've even called ourselves consumers rather than citizens. Like, we're just here to chomp our way through this planet and spit it out. And we don't have to think about the consequences. Because at some level of our consciousness, we're not ready. We're like this. No, I just want more. Give me more. Give me more. And that moreness, I think, is not just us. I think it's our ancestry speaking through our blood. I think it's this long-term longing for security. And we're driven by that long-term longing for security. But simultaneously, part of that journey was our consciousness separating from nature, learning to dominate nature, mechanizing nature, perceiving ourselves as superior to and not part of, then advancing into the technological age and believing that technology is the solution to everything, simultaneously ridiculing any form of nature connectedness. And there's the witch burnings in there, which are also the point at which the natural custodians of nature-based consciousness were tortured and murdered by the millions in the most horrific ways, and really graphically removed from our role as healers and tenders of life. And so feminine consciousness has to be reinstated, or it's over. Feminine consciousness has been dissected as part of that path that we've been on, and it's been normalized, and we're all used to it. So inside of that collective momentum that I'm talking about has been the normalization of a fundamental split from nature. And that fundamental split from nature is our fundamental split from ourselves as part of this planet, and from our own femininity. And I'm saying that both as men and women. We've been yanked from our hearts into our heads. We've been yanked from our intuition and our instinctual connected nature into, is it measurable? Yes, then it counts, And so, yeah, one of the reasons TreeSisters has been so flipping hard for me is because I'm pointing at the greatest wounds within human psyche. I'm pointing at what's happened to women. I'm pointing to what's happened to the feminine within all of us, and I'm pointing to what that has done to our fundamental relationship with nature, which is our bigger body. There are no greater wounds on this planet than those three that I'm naming, and I'm pointing at all of them and saying, we've got to go there if we're going to turn this around. And that's what freaks me out. Who wants to go there? I feel really abnormal a lot of the time in the fact that I'll say, no, I've just got to go in there, because unless we go in and feel the unfeelable, we can't bring our fractured consciousness and therefore our fractured societies and our fractured planet back together again. But we have to. So I sort of say, the first thing you've got to do is put your hand out on the side of the swimming pool and stop yourself. Like, recognize that we're in a collective momentum. And just because we've been taught this is normal, it's not. Destroying your own life support mechanism is not normal. It's not normal. how we're living is not normal. It's not reverent, and it's not making us happy. There is more mental illness going on now, and cancer and disease, than ever before, because we are almost terminally far away from the root of who and what we are. So I'm incapable of giving short answers to questions. I am totally incapable. But they're really meaty topics.
And you're saying them very eloquently, so I wouldn't worry about that. And you know what, you're saying exactly what I feel. So I'm someone that works with plant essences and plant medicines, and what I have discovered with that is that they have reconnected me with myself, but most importantly, they've reconnected me with nature, and it's been transformational, and I will never go back from that, having reconnected. And so what you've said about disconnection makes so much sense to me. And I know from, and do you know what's so funny is when you say to people, well, what's good in life? Think about a time when you feel happy, and they all say, well, I go for a walk in nature. I go in the woods, or I take the dog somewhere, or I smell the flowers. And I just think that's so clear and so obvious to people that reconnection is what we do instinctively, and yet we're still so separate from it. We still don't see that enough to see how vital it is for our own lives and our own vitality and life source and stuff. So I was just coming back again to the feminine consciousness. Is that how you sort of see us reconnecting? It's because the feminine consciousness is so much a part of the fabric of nature and the gift of life and so on, and why that's so important to reconnect everything, us to ourselves, to each other, to nature, to move forward.
Yes. There you are. There's a quick answer. But I'll tell you, yes. If this is you, okay, let me see if I can do this. No, that doesn't work. Well, this is your head, and this is your arms, and these are your legs. I'm trying to do a 5-pointed star here and failing miserably. But okay. If you imagine yourself as that shape, then you could say the left-hand side of you is feminine and the right-hand side of you is masculine. Let's just split you down the middle and just say there's a receptive side of your nature and there's an expressive side of your nature.
Yeah.
Receptive is your feminine principle, and the expressive side of your nature is your masculine principle. Now, masculine is, and they're both completely indivisible, and they're both sacred, and they're both as important as each other, and they're both a complementary pair. And when one of them tries to say it's bigger or better than the other, they're out of balance. So where we've been is, for whatever reason, the masculine has decided it's superior to the feminine. So instead of being a cohesive whole, it's just gone bam, it's gone right. I'm now going to stand on top of the feminine. And this is patriarchy. This is the shadow masculine. It's not the masculine, it's the shadow masculine, because only the shadow masculine would consider itself superior to and identify itself through the suppression of its other half, the feminine. So I'm not saying this is man. I'm saying this is the inherited state that we have all been birthed into. This is part of that continuum of consciousness and momentum where the feminine has been less than. Okay, she's rising. There's a lot that's changed. Women, we can belong to ourselves. We're not the property of our husbands. We've got volition over our bodies. In our countries, anyway, in a lot of countries in the world, women are still property and treated appallingly. But in our place, the feminine is rising. The feminine is our capacity to love, to feel, and to connect. It's our receptive capacity to sense, to intuit. Sorry, it's mutable, it's mysterious, it's life-giving, it's sensual, it's intrinsically woven into the fabric of all things. So the feminine side is like this receptive, like a sea anemone, you could imagine it. Like it's there, it's sensing all the time. And what it senses is then fed over to the masculine so that the masculine can take action appropriately to what the feminine is feeling. So the feminine in the TreeSisters map, I will say, it's the intrinsic wisdom of the heart and the body. what our heart knows. So basically how we treat each other, how we love each other, how we revere or trash each other. That's the realm of the heart. And then the body, our indivisibility from nature, the fact that if we poison that water, we poison the water in our own bodies. If we poison the air, we poison our own bodies. If we trash this, we trash ourselves, that there is no separation. So in a world where the feminine is equally in balance to the masculine, consciousness arises through direct connection and feeling of each other and nature. And then our masculine will respond appropriately to ensure the well-being of each other and nature, because you would think that our species would be interested in surviving and also having a planet that survives and thrives. Therefore, we can all live in harmony together. But that's not what we've got. What we've bizarrely got is a masculine that has gone, you're less than. It's turned away from the feminine, and it's saying, I'm just going to grow and grow and globalize and grow and dominate and grow and globalize and grow and take what I want and not think about the consequences. And so we're able to watch climate change spiraling out of control without feeling it, because our feeling side is down and we've disconnected it. And now it's so flipping horrendous. It's terrifying to even try and elicit the feminine side of ourselves, because who wants to feel the level of distress that's going on this planet? But we have to. Because unless we feel how things are, the feminine, how can we know what to do, the masculine? That's the thing. And that's the shift that we need to take to bring these two back into balance. Our feeling nature has to get back onto her throne. It's like the queen needs to be put back on her throne next to the masculine, so that the masculine can redefine itself, drop out of the patriarchal superiority, understand it's here to serve life. I just don't believe humanity is here to trash life, and that everything that our ancestors have toiled for is going to end up in a burnt out planet with no species, because we were so busy consuming it. We couldn't care enough to perpetuate the species. We can, but that shift of consciousness, dropping out of patriarchy, coming into a mutually respectful, loving, acknowledging relationship that exists as part of a conscious choice to serve life. That's the shift we're in. And I'm calling it the shift from a consumer species to a restorer species, because I'm trying to use language that highlights the ridiculousness of us showing up as consumers as if that's all we are, when actually what needs is to bring about a colossal amount of ecological restoration if we're going to survive.
And you know what, just as we're recording this, we couldn't have had any clearer sign from Gaia herself, really, could we? We've had Hurricane Harvey and all the floods from that. We've had Irma that's just hit. We've had unprecedented floods in Asia and Bangladesh and so on, and the fires that you're having in America. And
there's fires in Greenland and Siberia and Russia. Like there's fires in places that there just shouldn't be fires. But we've known this is coming. The planet is burning, and the planet is. I have a mobile phone coming off. Hold on 1 second. Let me just turn it off. Sorry. No, hopefully you can edit that out.
I will.
But to say, we were told that. Here's the thing. Yeah. I was told 15 years ago that we could not get above 350 degrees. No, 350 parts per million of carbon, because we could not allow the planet to get to 2 degrees centigrade warmer, because if we did, we would have no ice caps and no tropical forests left, which basically means the whole weather system and the hydrological cycle of the planet is gone. And now, because that's inconvenient, we're saying, oh, let's just try and get it below 2 degrees. We are in peril. And we cannot let the ice caps go. We cannot let the rainforests burn. And we're heading there. And that's why I'm saying everybody has to start giving back. Everybody. If 2 million Tree Sisters were giving money every month for trees, and not just what's the littlest bit that I can manage, but what's the most I can give back, we'd be planting 1 billion trees a year. That would change the face of the planet. We can suck that excess carbon out of the atmosphere, but we can't carry on just going, wow, look, it's all going to shit. Wow, look, it's getting terrible. Wow, thank God it's happening to them and not to me. We can't carry on that way. Like, we really are at the point of, like, wake up, do something massive. And now's the time. If you've got gifts, whatever they are, now's the time. We need all of it.
Yeah. So just to finish then, really, I would like to ask, what can people do? How can they support TreeSisters? And I know, just from my perspective, when I learned about your work, I immediately signed up and I give a donation every month, and I've done as much as I can afford, because I love trees, and I feel very passionate about what you're doing. And I've also said to you, I'm creating a range of tree essences, and I'm going to give the profits to TreeSisters as well. And obviously not everyone has like that, but everyone can do a little something, right? So how can people get involved with your work and the greater purpose here?
Well, thank you for that question. And I would say there's a bigger answer first, which is, please feel it. Like, please, it just makes me want to weep when I even say it. Phew, gosh, like, don't just watch the television. Don't just see the chaos that's going on and do nothing. Like, if all you can do is let yourself feel it, let it in, try and let it in, that gift to yourself, which hopefully will have you cry, because you will realize that everything you love is on the line. If you have children, your children's lives are on the line. Like, this is happening now. This isn't 100 years from now. This is now. And if you love, then let your heart break for what's in peril, because if you let your heart break, it will plug you into your courage. And inside you, there will be a colossal amount of creativity that you haven't tapped. And there will be, of course, fears. But that's why TreeSisters, one of the biggest reasons for TreeSisters is because alone, we can let our fears get the better of us. But when you plug yourself into a global network of women who are trying to move beyond our fears and bring our gifts, then you start to have that support. And that support and encouragement is absolutely crucial for all of us to feel like we're not alone. It's our aloneness that is so paralyzing, but our togetherness has the opposite effect. So, first of all, feel it. Can you let yourself realize that now is the time for change? Can you let yourself be called up by that? Can you let yourself realize that it's like, this wave is coming, and you can either keep your back to it and be flattened by it, or you can turn and ride it into your own greatness. TreeSisters has had her way with me, and I'm so glad, because I really don't care anymore. I don't care what people think about me. I don't care whether I get it wrong. I don't care whether people think I'm completely crazy. I make sense to myself, because every part of my life force is working towards what I love. That is a life worth living. That's what matters, is that you get to experience the fullness of who and what you are, showing up on behalf of all that you love, and being willing to let nature in her brilliance and her magnificence inform us. So please join TreeSisters. Please, what I'm saying is, grow your own forest. And what I mean by that is, give $20 a month, give $50 a month, give £100 a month, give £1,000 a month, give whatever you can that feels like, as much as you can do, because that will stack up to a colossal forest by the end of the year. And then keep doing it and keep doing it. And know that every month you're touching lives in Madagascar and Brazil and India, and it's going to be soon Nepal and Cameroon. And there's like 8 different ecosystems that we're transforming with the generosity of our donors. And beyond that, we're about to do the 1 million trees. We're not. We've just done the 1 million trees. We're about to do the 1 billion trees campaign. And that is billiontrees.me, billiontrees.me. And as part of that, there is an inner journey that you can take. If what I am or how I transmit touches you, then come on a 6-week inner journey where I'm going to take us through the revelation of who and what we really are, the capacity to come into our hearts and love each other, our indivisibility from nature, the activation of our restorer consciousness, the shining of our brilliance and the belonging to life. Like, that's a 6-week journey that I'm about to offer to the world for free, to say, can you come together and try and help shift consciousness? TreeSisters is as much an inner exploration of our own unleashing of our feminine consciousness and our brilliance as it is about actual practical on the ground change your behavior and give us money to plant trees and we'll do it for you. It's like, it's both, it's inner and outer. This is designed to be meaningful so that you can plug in and discover who you are. So yes, Julia is what we call a water carrier. She's going to give a percentage of her profits to the trees. There are many water carriers of every kind giving in a creative way. There are people doing fundraisers. We're about to create what we call a pollinator grove, where you can step in and really help us launch this campaign. There are ways to contribute, but just first of all, sign up for the newsletter so that we can tell you what's going on. Friend me on Facebook, because then you'll get all of my consistent ramblings and I'll tell you what's going on. You know, get onto the TreeSisters Facebook page. Just get in as up close and personal to us all as you possibly can, and you know, let's try and reforest our planet in no time at all. Like, let's just do it together.
And do you know what, you just hearing you describe that, that's exactly how we break through the void. You know, it's just what you've described. It's doing that inner journey, it's tapping in, it's feeling what's going on, and you will be different. You know, you can't help but move
you will
forward
be different
and start doing that, and it's what we all should be doing. So
I'll just say 19th of October is when we start. Right. 19th of October is when, we haven't decided what we're calling it yet, but that initial seeding event. Yeah. And then there's going to be what we call a week of why, and then the 6-week journey. Yeah. So we're going to have a lot of interviews with experts in the field around trees and climate. And we're going to make this a really revelatory process. And we're also looking for a lot of potential sponsorship from organizations, but also for organizations just to come in and say, yes, they'll take what we're calling the Restorer Pledge, which is the distillation of the whole 6-week journey, these 6 choices that anchor this course correction in our consciousnesses. So if you've got an organization, a company, another charity that wants to stand alongside us to help make this consciousness shift from a consumer species to a restorer species, we really want to hear from you. Just write to info@treesisters.org. Please get involved. Please, 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 please get involved.
Well, we've got links to everything on your speaker bio page on the Breaking Through the Void website. So brilliant. I mean, the timing's perfect. Definitely, as like say, get involved. 19th of October. You know, that's a couple of weeks after this is going to go out. It sounds amazing. So I will continue to be involved for sure, and I hope many people.
Thank you, Julia.
God, you're welcome, Claire. Thank you so much. That was very emotional, very inspiring, and wonderful. I'm so glad to have shared that with everyone in the summit. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome.